Social distancing could be gone next month, and the Prime Minister plots a more cautious path when it comes to foreign travel. With the government's roadmap to easing restrictions in England on course, there is caution over holidays abroad.
I don't think that the people of this country want to see an influx of disease from anywhere else.
Also tonight, the Premier League's new rules to stop England's big clubs breaking away. Breaking news tonight, billionaire Microsoft's Bill Gates and his wife Melinda are to divorce, and
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex.
LA gives Harry a standing ovation as he joins stars in the call for fair distribution of the vaccine.
This is ITV News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. Boris Johnson gave the clearest sign yet today there could be some opening up of foreign travel in a fortnight, but warned his government would adopt a cautious approach. The Prime Minister said that was needed to avoid what he called an influx of disease from other countries. Mr Johnson did, though, signal that social distancing rules in England could be scrapped in late June, as the government had hoped to do. Dan Rivers reports.
The dream of a sun-drenched escape is probably preoccupying many of us on a rainy bank holiday. But today there was a further reminder from the Prime Minister that we can't yet guarantee our summer getaways.
I do think that it's important to be cautious in this. We do want to do some opening up on May the 17th, but I don't think that the people of this country want to see an influx of disease from anywhere else. I certainly don't, and we've got to be very, very tough.
The government's expected to spell out which holiday destinations will be paired with which restrictions in the coming days. But today Labour said people need clarity and certainty.
What we can't have is a repeat of last summer, where the lists were chopping and changing on a daily or even weekly basis. So I'll wait and see what the government has to say. We have to be very careful and very cautious here.
Europe today indicated it's considering easing travel restrictions under pressure from countries looking to welcome back visitors. But it's the restrictions British travellers face when they come home that will be the deciding factor for most of us. The government's planning a traffic light system. If you arrive in the UK from a green country, you will not be required to isolate, although there'll be pre-departure and post-arrival tests. Those arriving from countries classed as amber or red will need to quarantine for 10 days, with those from red-listed countries required to stay in a managed quarantine hotel.
If I had to point to one thing that concerns me the most, it is the importation of infection from other countries, because we learned that we did that last year. So the All Parliamentary Party Group's report published today strikes a very cautious note and suggests that the UK government really rushing ahead to open up lots of international travel before we've got certification, etc., sorted out, I think is premature.
The changes to foreign travel will be accompanied by other restrictions easing in England. Today pubs were busy outside. In another fortnight they might be welcoming customers inside too. By June, the Prime Minister says there's a good chance social distancing will be scrapped in England. With things getting better here but still uncertain abroad, it might make a staycation more enticing, even if it means putting up with the sort of dismal weather we've come to expect on a bank holiday. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
The Premier League today came up with a plan to try and stop its biggest clubs from breaking away and forming their own league. New rules and regulations will be introduced. It comes after Manchester United supporters forced the cancellation of their match against Liverpool in protest at their owners and their involvement in attempting to form the failed European Super League. Sejal Carrier has the details.
Fans' anger at Manchester United's American owners runs deep. Yesterday, it spilled over. Their action condemned by all sides. As supporters faced off against the police, their fury fueled by their claim the Glazer family, who bought the club in 2005, have piled up debts and betrayed fans by signing up to the now defunct European Super League.
We want ways of, for any club, for that club, for the supporters and the communities to have more of a say in running their club. We need professional to run clubs, but they have to be run in the interest of the community.
Manchester United was one of the big 6 Premier League sides to have signed up to the now failed breakaway competition. Today, the Premier League said it wants to stop this from happening again by imposing additional rules and regulations to protect the principles of the Premier League and open competition. That'll be in the form of a new owners' charter that'll commit club owners to those core principles. Any breaches will result in significant sanctions. It's also seeking government help to bring in legislation to protect football's open pyramid and the integrity of the game. But the FA's former chairman Greg Dyke isn't convinced. He's calling for the creation of an independent regulator to protect the game as a whole.
They're trying to take some action to prevent a Super League happening again. I don't think what they're proposing does anything for the other problems that exist within football, where I think a proper regulator is needed.
The action taken by Manchester United fans was the latest in a string of protests to the breakaway Super League. Anger that has challenged the very foundations of English football. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
Our breaking news this evening, Microsoft's Bill Gates and his wife Melinda are divorcing after 27 years of marriage. The Microsoft co-founder announced on Twitter, "We have raised 3 incredible children and built a foundation that works all over the world to enable all people to lead healthy, productive lives." Well, for the very latest on this developing story, head over to itv.com/news. Boris Johnson today refused to answer if a Conservative Party donor was asked to cover the childcare costs for his young son. The Sunday Times reported such an approach had been made by the Prime Minister and didn't directly answer the question when it was put to him earlier. Well, our political correspondent Hannah Miller is here. Hannah, all rather awkward for the Prime Minister, isn't it?
Yeah, gifts and loans to the Prime Minister aren't necessarily a problem as long as they're declared properly. But it's clear that the Prime Minister finds all this discussion of his financial situation very uncomfortable to talk about. He was asked about it today after the Sunday Times reported that a Tory donor resented being asked to pay for a nanny for Boris Johnson's youngest son, Wilfred, who you can see there with his fiancée, Carrie Simons. We're told the donation didn't happen and ultimately the Prime Minister is now covering the cost. But today he didn't deny it when he was asked whether a donor had ever been asked to contribute.
I'm finding that what people in this election want to talk about is the issues that matter to them. And I know that people want to focus on all that kind of stuff, but I'm finding that what people want to talk about is what we're going to do to keep their council tax low.
Yes or no question, was a Tory donor ever asked to pay for the childcare?
I can tell you that all this kind of stuff is, in my view, exclusively for the interest of the Westminster bubble.
To some extent, we'll find out on Thursday whether or not that's the case. The Prime Minister was speaking there from Hartlepool, where there's a by-election that both parties are very keen to win. For the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, it's the first electoral test of his leadership. And for Boris Johnson, it's an opportunity to further cement the Conservative Party in that part of the country. There have been questions about his private life in the past that haven't got in the way of his success. And many MPs are hoping that'll be the same this time round.
All right, Hannah, thank you. Well, after 2 decades of steep decline following devolution, the new leader of Scottish Labour has one big task on his hands when the country goes to the polls on Thursday to elect a new parliament. It is a fight between Labour and the Conservatives for second place, which will determine just how well Anna Sarwar has done. Well, our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith now on the challenge ahead.
Even political rivals agree the winner of this election is almost guaranteed. But after 2 decades of decline, Scottish Labour have a new leader in the ring. It's Anna Sarwar taking on the Tories in the fight for second place.
Time is an issue, and I'm not going to deny that. I've got to try and persuade people over a 10-week period, 10 weeks being from the day I became leader to the day of the election, that the Labour Party is changing. I'm not going to pretend that the process of change is complete.
His problem is Scottish politics being polarised on independence, with the SNP and Tories on opposing sides leaving Labour squeezed out and divided. Anna Sarwar talks about moving on from old debates. Nicola Sturgeon taunts him about sitting on the fence.
Both the SNP and the Tories, they only want to talk to the half of the country that agree with them on the Constitution.
Do you accept they're clear on those issues?
I'm not willing to do that.
They're clearer than you on these big issues?
I'm absolutely clear. I don't support independence. I don't support a referendum. There are bigger issues at play.
There's no indication from any of the evidence I've looked at here in the polling, there's no indication that Scots don't want to discuss these issues. I understand why Labour wants people to move on because you get squeezed out.
No, not at all. No, I would counteract that. I would counter that. I think the political bubble, not just politicians and political parties, I would also say the wider media political bubble, want us to concentrate on these issues. I'm not denying for a second that there still remains deep division on the constitutional questions. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is I don't think people at home right now are worried about the date of a referendum. Your children's education is on the ballot. The NHS catch-up is on the ballot. Jobs and the economy are on the ballot.
Anas Sarwar doesn't expect to be First Minister after this election, but he is on a path to restore some credibility after Scotland lost its love for Labour. Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
And finally, Prince Harry enjoyed a rock star's welcome by screaming fans in Los Angeles. He was on stage pleading for the COVID vaccine to be shared equally between everyone on the planet, regardless of where they live, for the charity concert featuring Jennifer Lopez, Selena Gomez and a host of other big names will be shown around the world this weekend, as Sangeeta Lal reports.
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex.
An electric welcome by a fully vaccinated Los Angeles audience. This was Prince Harry's first appearance since his grandfather Prince Philip's funeral, one he made as chair of the campaign called Vax Live, to ensure everyone in the world has access to a vaccine.
This pandemic will not end unless we act collectively. The vaccine must be distributed to everyone, everywhere.
As well as equal access to a vaccine, the concert also focused on those who may be hesitant to have a jab, with President Biden sharing this message.
You know, we can't let up now. The vaccines are safe. I promise you they're safe.
Jennifer Lopez performed alongside dozens of celebrities, including Selena Gomez, who hosted the night filled with music and a strong message too.
We need to get more doses to people around the world who need them.
The concert will be streamed online next Saturday, raising money to ensure, like these fans, everyone has a chance at having a jab. Sangeeta Lal, ITV News.
And that is it from us this evening. From everyone here on the Late Team, good night. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye.